The First Minister of Scotland, Humza Yousaf, resigned. You might remember him from this, Jim.
White. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. And not just Justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
Now, just for context, this is the official Scotland Census website. As you can see here, updated in 2023, October. Basically, it's just a breakdown of the ethnicity, race of people living in Scotland. As you can see here, 96% white. And you have the First Minister of the country complaining that there are too many white people in positions of power. What's interesting about this is there are plenty of reasons to get rid of or want to get rid of Yousaf as the First Minister of the country. However, the reasoning seems to be that he did not go left enough.
Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, has resigned. He was adamant that he could survive an incoming vote of no confidence after ceasing a deal with the Greens.
His face said it all.
I have therefore informed the SNP's National Secretary of my intention to stand down as party leader.
A First Minister engulfed in crisis after sacking the Greens from his government.
Unfortunately, in ending the Butte House Agreement in the manner that I did, I clearly underestimated the level of hurt and upset that caused Green colleagues. For a minority government to be able to govern effectively and efficiently, trust when working with the opposition is clearly fundamental.
So basically, Scotland had these 2030 so-called climate targets. Yousaf decided to drop those, and then his own party went to war against him, which ultimately he then loses. Well, it's almost a certainty that they will replace him with someone worse. Let's take a look at his so-called hate crime law that backfired when he tried to implement it.
Interestingly, you too have also been reported under the new hate crime legislation. And it actually, for many Scots who've reported you, goes back to a speech you made in 2020 where you went through a whole series of important senior public posts in Scotland which are held by white people. And you made a very powerful point about how white so many important positions in Scotland are, and you said it's not good enough. Now, Scotland is 96% white, and there are some very active people, particularly on social media, who are saying Humza Yousaf's message was essentially racist. It was anti-white, and I, for one, feel that this is stirring up hatred against me as a white person. The police aren't interested. They say it's nonsense. They're certainly not going to investigate it. Yes. But under the new legislation, the police also have to, as I understand it, record it as a non-criminal hate incident, and you will be named. How do you feel about that?
So a couple of points to make. The description of those who reference that speech as hatred, I've not seen anybody who has described it in that way that isn't, frankly, part of the far right.
Just in case you don't speak leftist, what he's saying there is that anyone who disagrees with him is considered far right, and that's pretty much the end of it. So just remember, if you support free speech in 2024, that is now considered a far-right stance. This next clip gives you an idea of just how ridiculous it is when you implement these policies in the real world.
There were more than 8,000 complaints in just the first week that these laws had been enacted. And of course, you can make an anonymous complaint to the police, and the police have promised they will follow up every single complaint. Well, Caleb, they're now saying that 8,000 in 1 week, if this trajectory continues, within 9 months, hate crimes will overtake all other crimes put together. Officers have been brought back from holidays to do overtime in order to chase up all of these complaints.
Hang on, I reckon it's the officers making the complaints themselves. They're generating work, they're getting the overtime. Why wouldn't you do it?
It could be.
Well, I think it is imperative that when people report a crime, that is dealt with, and people going forward will want to have the confidence that if they experience a hate crime, that they can report it and that it will be taken seriously and it will be pursued by police, prosecutors and the court. And the fact that Police Scotland have recorded 240 hate crimes is of course a reminder that this legislation is indeed needed. It's also important to recognise that in terms of the recorded crimes of that first week, that nearly half of those were crimes associated with racial prejudice. And that should be a reminder to us all in Scotland that while we like to think of ourselves as welcoming and friendly and a tolerant progressive society, which we are, but we must recognise that hatred and prejudice continues to exist.
White, 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 white.